Good morning. Now, I know it's Monday morning, and I don't want to depress you in any way, shape, or form, but it seems to me that every time I look at the wee red light, if I'm not talking about AIDS, I'm talking about prostitution. And I don't do it for the sake of sleazy sensationalism. They are both issues that we've got to face up to. Not AIDS today, however. Prostitution, yes, because guys like Harcourt, you know, Harcourt knows what needs to be done as far as adult hookers are concerned. And despite the foot-dragging by women's groups, on whose side he normally is, and people like Sven Robinson and Margaret Mitchell and hordes of others, he shows good common sense on the hookers. He says, be discreet, get off the street. Be discreet, do it somewhere else where we can't see you. And we, the Harcourt Webster kind of reactionaries, from some point of view, will win this battle. But we have gaily ignored the problem of the juvenile hookers. Not all the Bill C-49s in the world, passed maybe by Christmas by the House of Commons, can cure the problem of juvenile hookers. We'll see if Mike Harcourt has even thought about that problem this morning. That, and of course, he's being accused of doing everything under the table at the City Hall, secrecy, you know, everywhere. Don't tell the public anything. That's what some people say anyway. And then, once a year, I give you an interview with that chronicler of the rich, and sometimes by the time he's chronicled them, they're no longer rich. I'm talking about Peter Newman, half of whose millionaires have gone down the tube. But I've got a couple of keyhole peepers here this morning. One's a former ditch digger. Show the ditch digger. David Cruz, his name is. And the other's a guy who used to write for TV Guide who cut my throat on one occasion, and I haven't forgiven him yet. His name is Paul Grescoe. And they've done a good keyhole peeping. You know, it reminds me a bit of my old friend, the late lamented Wasserman. But a very nice book about greedy people who have moved in and made millions, and most of them have still got it. But we'll start with his worship, Mike Harcourt, after the break. Well, you've got to be bright this morning, because I'm not.
I had a good relaxing weekend. I'll be growly, punchy, whatever.
Mike Harcourt, His Worship, the Mayor of Vancouver. Now, you had my opening remarks this morning, Your Honor. Is there anything I said about the problem of prostitution or juvenile hookers with which you can possibly disagree?
No.
No.
No, it's
I'll be back
be
after.
Discreet. Be discreet. Don't use the street. The big one that concerns me, Jack, is the poor kids are out there in the street, and the lack of resources, the fact that they just, this revolving door syndrome. They're 50% of the police pickups are juveniles. They go into the human resource facilities and out the other door.
And will Bill C-49, which controls street prostitution if it's ever passed, will that give you any weapon, or any, not weapon, any
sanction.
Sanction
Yes.
to use against the juveniles? What sanction?
Yes, it will, in the sense that we can go after the customers with a vengeance, which is what I intend to do. I intend to enforce it against the customers, most of them males, and we are already getting their license numbers. We know who they are, and as soon as we get that bill, we will enforce with a vengeance.
As a former civil libertarian, that grates a little bit. Are you telling me, Your Worship, that the police are presently compiling a master list of hookers' customers?
Yes.
So that they can nab them?
Yes.
Names and addresses?
Yes.
We've got a secret file of everybody who goes to a hooker.
It won't be secret. As soon as they're arrested, it'll be public knowledge. And the point I'm trying to get across, Jack...
Are you going to ask the newspapers to print the names?
Oh, they can print it. It's public knowledge.
But they won't print it.
If somebody is charged with a criminal offense, it is public knowledge. And the point I'm making, and what seems to be forgotten by an awful lot of people who are misguided on this issue, is they're putting the rights of the pimps and the prostitutes and the customers ahead of people in this country who have a right to a decent, quiet, safe neighborhood and street and house. And that, to me, is the key issue that's being forgotten, and is the tragedy of the thousands and thousands of citizens in this city and across this country who are being plagued by this horde of pimps and customers and prostitutes. Their rights come first, in my opinion.
I'm glad to see that you're moving to the right, because as you know, under the Charter of Rights, the equality provisions, that there can be no discrimination against anybody for anything, and many of your friends in the women's groups strongly object to any legislation in any way, shape, or form that interferes with a prostitute's right to sell her body whatever she wishes.
I'm not trying to interfere with that right.
But you'd agree that's the attitude.
I am saying, though, that they don't have the right to destroy somebody's neighborhood while they're doing that. That's my point, which is why I've said from the beginning, be discreet, don't use the street. And that's why we're going to go after the customers, because if you take away the market, you take away the street activity.
Take away the street market, you take away the street activity. Let's go back to Bill C-49.
Yeah.
I notice Robinson's at it again. Robinson's is still advocating those who want to be hookers should be allowed to continue. Prostitution should be decriminalized. He's wrong, isn't he?
Well, it's two different issues, and I've said that from the beginning. The issue of street solicitation and the terrible negative impact on neighborhoods is a different issue from body houses and from the larger issue of prostitution.
But you don't want body houses in any way, shape, or form in the city of Vancouver.
Well, I'm not sure where you could do them in
Burnaby,
theory.
Robinson's riding.
You mean the North Burnaby riding?
Yes, that's where they should
my
be.
suggestion all along, and I may say that Sven I talked to on Friday, and he says they're not going to delay the bill. It's going to go to the committee this week. The Bill C-49 is going to the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of Parliament. It will be hopefully back before Parliament sometime in November and ready for use towards the end of November. So I think that Sven is on board there. I disagree with him about Bill C-49, but that's a separate issue, the larger issue of prostitution. Where, Jack, do you think we could have a red light district or body houses in Vancouver? That's the problem. It's great in theory until you start to think about where.
Well, you and I went through that before. I went down and did a broadcast somewhere there used to be down on Powell Street,
right,
with their names embedded in cement and tiles on the floor.
Which now has 4 seniors projects around it.
You and I know perfectly well that there is no part of Vancouver that is prepared to accept a red light district. And you're not prepared to make a moral decision that we should legalize hookers, are you?
Well, it's legal now.
Legalize body houses.
The problem is the body houses, pimps, and soliciting. I don't see anybody that wants to legalize pimping or overly aggressive soliciting. The real issue is body houses and how you do it.
Are you in favor of legalizing body houses if a district could be found that would accept them?
I don't think that our community is ready for it yet. I personally think that that the whole issue of prostitution is not going to go away. 4,000 years of councils have not been able to get rid of it.
Well, I push you on that. Are you in favor, if the proper area could be found, of legal body houses?
I don't think it can be found.
No, but are you in favor philosophically?
I'm not philosophically or morally in favor of prostitution, no.
Or body houses?
Or body houses.
No, you said.
No.
I know, I'm being
no,
deliberately
Jack,
awkward with you.
No, but I've said that before on the program.
People like me, my age, say, we don't want to legalize body houses in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I personally do not like the idea of prostitution.
Good.
I don't like the idea of body houses.
Let's go to the next one.
But I'm saying that that's what the Fraser Commission and what Crosby have got to deal with next, is the whole issue of prostitution in this country.
There is no political party in this country that will campaign for election, said Webster arrogantly, on the basis of a proposition to legalize whorehouses, which would be the establishment of body houses. Is there any political party?
There may be.
NDP?
I don't know if the NDP or the Conservatives or Liberals would, but I think it's an issue that's going to be front and center over the next 2 years.
Yeah.
After we pass Bill C-49 and we start to deal with the kids and the women and kids on the street who shouldn't be there and some programs for them, I think that's the issue that's going to have to be faced.
All right. Now, let's go to Bill C-49.
Yep.
I remember when there was a section in the Criminal Code, Vag C, being a prostitute wandering abroad.
Which we all wanted to get rid of.
Because that was really discriminatory.
It was.
Also was used with beggars, and that was also...
Right. And it only applied to women, and it only applied to prostitutes.
And the other Vag A applied to beggars,
right.
as I recall.
Yeah.
People without visible means of support.
Nobody wants to bring those back.
Bill C-49. Pretend ludicrously I'm the hooker.
Right.
You're the judge. I come up in front of you on Bill C-49 and I'm found guilty of soliciting.
Right.
What's my penalty?
penalty would probably be for the first offense, would probably be a suspended sentence or a small fine.
Second offense.
Second offense would be a larger fine.
Third offense.
Third offense could be a short jail term.
Where she'd get medical treatment, get checked up by the doctors at least, and come back onto the streets cleaner.
Well, as I said, I want to enforce not against the women unless they're really obnoxious and looking for arrest. I would really like to go after the customers.
Oh, both. But I can't think of a customer ever in the old days having been sent to prison.
No, but I think the embarrassment, I think the public ridicule, I think the
newspapers?
interference with their family life, I think that that's the deterrent that we need.
And papers like the West End, the Courier, the North Shore News, the Sun, and the Province should run the names of people found guilty of consorting with prostitutes.
Now, you got to realize the problem is that people can use pseudonyms. They can use aliases. And sometimes that can get awkward because they may use somebody's name that...
Anyway, you're visualizing a returning away to the old court, don't misunderstand me, licensing system, whereby some girls were chased off the streets and found it wasn't worth it, and some accepted the penalty of fine, jail. Fine, jail.
Yeah, but that's a...
I think it's better.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is that you have two choices. Either you allow this to continue in Mount Pleasant or the West End if that injunction gets tossed out, and you have whole communities get eroded, where you have women who are treated like prostitutes just because they live in the neighborhood, kids who are flashed and insulted by prostitutes and by the creeps that hang out in the community, guys who have to get into their house by walking through a gauntlet of prostitutes. People, their rights come first, Jack. That's the point we got to keep front and center.
All the way. By the way, will the Chief Justice's injunction freezing prostitutes out of the West End, will that die when C-49 is passed?
Yes.
So that'll go?
Yes.
So they'll be back in the West End, but liable to
No, they
arrest.
won't. Then they'll be, well, I would hope it would stay for a while, but the point is, if they go back there now, they're, of course, in contempt of court.
Oh, yeah, but after...
Which is a very serious sanction.
That must go eventually, that injunction.
Well, the injunction is there as a temporary holding action until we get Bill C-49 passed.
Do you want the police to proceed against prostitutes by summons or by arrest? And the customers?
The advantage of the criminal code is that you can do it by arrest. By summons is very awkward administratively.
And you're all for arrest?
I am for arrest.
Good.
But people have a choice.
So we now have a...
But the point is, Jack, they have a choice. Be discreet, don't use the street.
Oh, I agree entirely, but I just want to tell your friends on the master list that one, they're going to be arrested. Hopefully their names will be published. Thirdly, that some of the hookers might back away from their temporarily chosen
Particularly the women who don't want to be there and the kids.
The juveniles we'll talk about next, after the break. This might be a little difficult for me to follow. At the moment, if a traffic ticket is issued, right?
Right.
And somebody doesn't show on the traffic ticket, I'm told that City Hall practice is not to issue a warrant until 10 tickets have not been paid. Are you aware of that?
That's right. Well, we've tripled the number of tickets we've been giving out the last little while, Jack, in traffic. Plus, we have the stepped-up enforcement of the meters, parking meters, and illegal infractions of parking in lanes and that sort of stuff.
That's part of this business.
Yeah.
Now, are you going to order your bureaucrats at City Hall to issue warrants on a first non-appearance, or is it going to be 10 times before they're going to get a warrant?
I'll have to check into that, but one of the things we are going to be doing is stepping up the harassment of people that are going down into these residential neighborhoods
But there's no point in
looking for
stepping up
prostitutes.
in the harassment unless you finally issue warrants even for people motor vehicle infractions in Mount Pleasant. You're not issuing them now until the motorist gets 10 warrants.
Yeah, but the vast majority of them pay. I mean, 9 out of 10, Jack, pay right off the top.
Good point, though.
Yeah.
You better shake up the bureaucrats and make them realize this is a problem, too.
Yeah, well, we'll talk. That's our mutual friend, Rolly.
Rolly Broman.
Yeah, so we'll talk to him.
I thought he was retired.
No. He won't retire.
You mean the Birdman?
He may even outlast you. If that's impossible, he won't outlast you.
Rolly, I'll hear
But Rolly's a good guy. I'll talk to him about it.
He's very good at the whistling call of the purple finch. Now, juvenile prostitution, quite serious.
This is the real tragedy of it all. The kids that are out there in the street.
You're going to use C-49 to get the customers of the juveniles, and these people should be charged with something other than solicitation.
Oh, well, I'll tell you one of the
problems. If you have
problems.
sexual intercourse with a 13-year-old, can you not be charged?
Yes, you can, but it's a difficult offense to prove because a lot of the 13 and 14-year-olds look like 20-year-olds, and it's not a straight automatic because they're 13 or 14. You can be convicted.
I understand that we can no longer charge a man having intercourse with a 14-year-old with contributing to juvenile delinquency.
That act is not there anymore. You've got the Young Offenders Act now.
It's crazy.
Yeah, well, there are some areas that can be utilized. The real tragedy, though, are those kids, because those kids, a lot of them are very sick.
As of this moment.
They're very sick, and they have serious drug problems. They have health problems with pneumonia, hepatitis. They have serious emotional problems.
AIDS will be next.
They should not be on the street, Jack. And I think this is why we've said to the Attorney General's Department, the Ministry of Human Resources, our police, our health, pull your act together and concentrate on the kids and get those kids off the street. And those women who are marginal street prostitutes who are there because they say out of economic necessity, for God's sake, let's find them some alternate ways of earning money for them and their kids. So we're not after the women and the kids. We want to help those people. But it's the customers that are the key. It's the customers that we are going to put the focus on.
As Chief Constable Bob Stewart told me, they can pick up an underage kid 2, 3, or 4 times in a 24-hour period.
And they're back out on the street.
And they're back out on the street.
Yeah.
Do we not need legislation to enable us to confine these juvenile prostitutes? Honest to goodness, everybody went crazy in the 70s and wouldn't confine anybody. Now, do you not think these young girls and boys must be put into a system whereby they are lifted and put somewhere for discipline, cleanliness, and sanity?
I think there are a small number who won't respond to the traditional human resources facilities and approach. And by the way, they are in no different position than a parent is under the present legislation. There's only 2 areas in which they can contain a juvenile. One is under the Mental Health Act. You know how tough that is. And then there's one other provision. Now, that's very onerous proof. We agreed as a council that there needs to be, for a small number of the hardcore juveniles who are serious risks to themselves and the public, there needs to be some containment legislation.
We cannot allowed to say jail or detention
well,
home.
it's a jail, it's a detention home, it's a containment facility, whatever you want to call it.
Even Harry Rankin's for it.
You see, well, Harry and I agreed that they should not have got rid of the provisions for people that are the chronic alcoholics who don't have free will. You see, there's an assumption that you can't lock people up because they can make a choice about their lives. These kids and the chronic alcoholics are so zonked and so far gone, they don't have free choice. They are vegetables, most of them.
Mental health.
They require care, treatment, and attention so that they can then make some sensible and healthy choices about their lives. So my real concern in this whole thing are the young kids who are out there, who are carrying around venereal disease, carrying around hepatitis, possibly AIDS, who are a risk to themselves and to the general public. And that's where this is where we, as a society, we really let people down, is the kids that are out there in the street.
The permissiveness of the past 10 years, not only in AIDS, but in dealing with juveniles, has been an appalling blunder.
And it's ruined a lot of kids' lives.
Good stuff. Well, we're finished with that for the moment. It's a
Sure, let's get on
distasteful
to something
subject,
else.
isn't it?
It is. It's, you know, I've got other areas that I prefer to deal with in this great city of ours, but I'm going to stick with it until we get an amendment to the criminal code, until we get some treatment programs for those poor women and kids who want to get off the street.
Okay.
For the others that I call outlaw free enterprisers, who don't want body houses, they don't want red light districts, they just want to be left alone, not be taxed, that's a different story. That's a larger issue.
Gosh, there are MPs arguing for residential body houses right now across the country.
If you read the Hansard of September the 6th and 7th, it will
Shock you.
ruin your breakfast.
Who, people like Lucy Pepin?
Who say we should have residential body houses.
Wasn't she in the status of women?
I'm not sure
One of
what
those
she
things,
was. But,
advising
you know,
council.
residential body
Okay.
houses I don't think will fly.
Rapid change of subject. Are you going to try again to get your 8.5p increase for the mayor and the alderman?
No, that was shot down by council, but all they're doing, Jack, is putting it off to another council. They're just making sure that only the wealthy 10% and the poor 10% can run for public office. The rest of the public, by the time the pay increase happens and the increments occur, the amount that council members are being paid will be fallen so far beyond what it takes for most people just to maintain a decent life.
How much
that
are
you'll
you
cut out a
behind?
lot of people.
How much are you behind now?
Oh, doesn't matter. I mean, I could be making 2 or 3 times the amount of money I'm making now. That's not the reason I went into politics. So my personal situation is not important.
You're managing all right.
Sure, because my wife and I have managed our affairs sensibly, and we have 2 professions we can go back to, so it's not a problem.
Okay, enough of the
But
money.
it is a problem for the city if you make it difficult for the 80% of the population not to be able to afford to run for public office.
Next, the City Hall's preoccupation with in-camera meetings and secrecy. After the break. I was quite astonished, Your Worship, when you went for that ready mix plant, $250,000 for cement that was going to be dearer, without any public debate. And you did that behind closed doors, didn't you?
Oh no, but it was a unanimous decision of council.
To what?
To do a cement plant on our own. Just like we do a lot of our own stuff in-house because it's cheaper.
Tell me it was just blackmail to make the cement people bring down their prices.
No, there was a unanimous decision of council to do it. The council split on when to do it, and the cement companies came in a lobby, and I invited them to come to council, as a matter of fact, to convince us that it was not the time to do it, that the city was getting good prices now. But you realize that when we put this together in 1981-82, the cement companies jacked up their prices 100%.
Yeah.
81, 82, 83.
So you're still holding it up behind your back as a club to use
It's not a club. It's trying to get the best prices that we can for our taxpayers, and it's something that we've done in a whole variety of other services.
You can't, with all your union wages and conditions, you can't make cement cheaper
Yes,
than,
we can.
than the cement company.
Yes, we can. When they raise their prices 100% over a 1.5-year period.
Did you discuss that in secret?
We discussed that in open council. We had we invited 2 or 3 representatives to come before us and
What about discussing
convince
this?
us that it was not a good time to go. And I, as a matter of fact, said, fine, we'll put it off then.
Are we,
keep giving us good prices
Are we
for
in
our
agreement that
taxpayers.
the Vancouver Symphony Society affairs have been badly handled? Not by you, by them.
Well, I think when you get $1.7 million in debt,
And you're a publicly
you've got
funded
problems.
body.
You've got serious problems. But
Why
my point is that let's put that behind us, and let's make sure that we preserve the integrity of the symphony. People want a symphony orchestra here. But when you
Do
go
they?
1.7, yeah, I think so.
Oh,
I think so.
in these hard times?
They've got the largest membership of any symphony orchestra in North America.
Look, if 50 cents of your seat ticket is paid by subsidies, it's good for those people who like music to have a symphony. You don't subsidize Bruce Allen's rock and roll, do you?
We subsidize your football tickets.
Not my football tickets.
No, but the stadium, all public facilities, they have general taxpayers' money into it. And what's
Okay.
one person's culture is another person's
But
bore.
you discussed your VSO bailout behind closed doors, didn't you?
You're talking about the in-camera meetings of council and some of the council's bleedings about that?
And unnecessary
Yeah.
material being discussed.
Unnecessary material. We have, Jack, over the last 10 months, had 3,000 items go before our council. About 150 have gone in camera. And if you'd like to know what those items are, I'd be glad to make them available to you in the media. That is one of the silliest, it must have been a slow news day.
What May Brown says, and she's
Yeah.
a woman of considerable stature, prestige, reputation, and admiration in the city of Vancouver. She says of you,
Yeah.
what we continually see is that the items that the mayor doesn't want the media to get wind about are suddenly added to the in-camera agenda.
Yeah.
Do you plead guilty to that?
No.
Can't you think of
No.
half a dozen you've added?
No.
One?
I can think of 2.
Which two?
One was the Couverton Village and Art exhibit, and 2, we discussed a report which was made public. We discussed some of the property aspects of that in camera, but the report on the symphony was made public at my request the same day that council was discussing it. So, as I say, it sounds like they're stretching to get a little publicity for themselves.
Why did you discuss that Dutch village idea in camera?
Well, for 2 or 3 reasons, because we were talking about some contracts possibly with the city. We were talking about the use of some land that involved our arrangements with the provincial government and with the art gallery, and because we wanted to deal with some courtesy with the mayor of Couverton, who asked that he get a reading from the council on the whole project.
In any case, Mayor's right when she says that every now and again you add things to the in-camera meetings
Yes,
which
but
are not on the
what she didn't say, and what the other young fellow on our council didn't say, is that at the top of every agenda, in-camera agenda, there is a paragraph that says any items which council members feel should be discussed in open council, please let us know. And council puts those into open council. So as I said, it must have been a slow news week.
No, I think you've probably got a tendency to slip things through in camera.
No,
just to test the weather.
Just those 2 items. Those are the only 2, Jack. Out of 3,000, by the way, over the last 10
How long have you been mayor now?
5 years.
Granville, you've sure seen the Granville Mall go downhill under your suzerainty, haven't you?
Oh, I think it was downhill for the last 40 years.
Why don't you do something about it?
You know about the gin mills and the other places down on Granville Street that have been there for 40 years. It's not as though it's a new problem that that end of Granville Street has.
We spent all that money to dress up part of Granville Street and we made it worse?
No, most of it works well.
Does it?
Sure. I'd say the from Hastings Street to Robson works quite well. It's the 2 blocks to the south of there, the Orpheum Theatre block, which isn't doing badly, and the other block.
It was Campbell, Rathie and Phillips who were to blame by allowing the Kemp Investments to go underground.
Which I disagreed with.
So did I.
Yeah.
Have at Mike Harcourt, the mayor of Vancouver. Give him hell after the break. How many years since you were a callow-cheeked article student in the inner city caper?
The inner city caper was 1969 to 1971. Those were fun years.
I thought it was about 1959.
No, 69 to 71. That was a lot of, that was enjoyable.
Short, sharp, and succinct. S-U-C-C-I-N-C-T to Harcourt, please. Go ahead.
Good morning, Jack. Good morning, Your Worship.
Good morning, sir.
I've got a few points here, Jack. This prostitution thing, this must be ratings week the last 2 weeks. This is all we've heard in the city. I agree with the mayor. It's not going to be changed. In 4,000 years, they haven't been able to change it. But I've got some city issues here. The first thing is, you read in the Vancouver Sun letters constantly coming in from tourists outside the city, complimenting the city on the cleanliness of its streets, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's a direct result of the no layoffs policy adopted by this council. My other issue is on the CCB. I know you might think this is strange, but I recall that when the CCB was going down, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't the city of Vancouver pull all its investments out of that bank, $4.6 million, while at the same time our provincial government, alleged money managers, were plowing $13 million into same said bank?
Well, this is all history, and the provincial government was asked by the Bank of Canada to help save the damn thing, and they did their duty at the time.
Fair enough, Jack. And the other thing, the cement, okay.
Okay, goodbye. He was a bit pompous, wasn't he? Go ahead, please.
Hello, Mr. Webster. Mr. Harcourt.
Yes, sir.
I was watching the program, and we started talking a little bit about traffic tickets, and I had the phone. Now, about a year ago, I was stopped on my bicycle, given $40 worth of fines, given a court date. I missed it. There was a bench warrant. One night, they stopped me on the street, took my ID, hauled me into court, made me sign another promise to appear. I didn't go for that. 2 days ago, I got a jaywalking ticket for $15. I'm not going to pay that. I'm not going to go to court. Now, Mr. Harcourt, is it excusable for the police to chisel funds out of citizens in this manner? I mean,
sure, I think what you're displaying is bad citizenship. If you committed the offense, you should pay the fine. If you didn't, you can go to court. We have the rule of law in this country. And I hear this all the time in the prostitution thing. I've got a right to be down here and ruin neighborhoods. Or how dare you pick on people? Or how dare you give people a criminal record? Sir, we have the rule of law in this country.
Good. That's the way to deal with them. It's not an election this year, is it?
No.
Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor Harcourt.
Yes, sir. Oh, ma'am, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Could you tell me, is there any possible chance of having this prostitution solved before our Expo 86 opens next year?
Well, ma'am, we will not solve prostitution in the next 4,000 years, let alone the last 4,000 years. What we will do is to get across what I've been saying since 1978. Be discreet, don't use the street.
Right, good. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'd like to address Mike Harcourt about the prostitution problem and how urgently we need police protection in Mount Pleasant.
Yeah.
In the past, I had called 911 3 times one day to try to get hookers and their johns out of our underground parking lot. And I was told by Inspector Britton we did not have the police force to supervise such action. I'm a young girl who does get harassed when I walk out on Broadway, and I just don't think we have to tolerate this.
I agree with you, ma'am. That's one of the reasons, Jack, why I've asked our police to start working a lot more closely with the local residents, but then the residents have got to a certain extent, have been expecting the police to do a lot more than they're capable of, A, with the powers they have under the criminal code, and B, the number of people that we have out there on the street. 911 is emergency. It's got to be a matter of life and death. And there is not, you know, there's maybe 100 policemen out there on the street at any one shift. They're covering the whole city, a city of 420,000 people. Now, I've asked our 911 people to be more sensitive to the problems in Mount Pleasant, and they're trying to do that. But what we need is an amendment to the criminal code.
Thanks, ma'am. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning, Jack. I'd like to ask Mr. Harcourt why they don't test hookers that are picked up on the street and or their johns for AIDS and venereal disease.
Hold on.
Well, because we can't do that, sir. We don't have the ability to interfere with people's civil liberties to that extent.
Once they go to a CALA on a non-payment of a number of fines, then they'll be automatically checked for health and dealt with then. We made that point earlier. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor Harcourt, you're saying be discreet, don't use the street.
Right.
So that's going to cause a flooding in bars and all other kind of social places.
Well, but that's already happening, sir. We've had a network of prostitution in this city for decades, where there are bars, where there are hotels, where there are restaurants, where there are, whatever you call them, escort services are being called right now, or some other form of prostitutes to get together with customers.
Escort services are well known by the Vancouver police and the work of my own intrepid reporter.
Yes.
To be places of prostitution.
Okay, great, thank you.
Well, if they're going, thank you, sir. If they believe that, and if they think that criminal offenses are being committed, Jack, then they should bring charges forward. There should be evidence. But what the police and our council wanted us to do is what the police couldn't do legally, they wanted us to do illegally, ban a type of business without due process, and that's not the way our system works.
Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack and Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, sir.
Just a couple of questions, Mr. Mayor. Could you explain how much money the City Council is paid per annum? And excuse my ignorance, I'm not too up on city politics right now.
I certainly
and
can.
how you could warrant an 8% pay increase in this time of restraint in both the public and private sector.
Okay, I'll give you two responses. Number one, the mayor makes $37,000 in salary and $17,000 in expenses. The council members make $14,000 in salary and about $7,000 in expenses. The council has not, sir, since 1982, had any increase whatsoever in the honorarium that they receive for putting in about 35 to 50 hours a week, let alone their private lives, let alone their business lives. That means that they have essentially taken about a 20% cut over those last 4 or 5 years.
But you have turned down the problem. Who recommended 8.5?
Our city manager recommended the 8.5.
And you all voted it down.
No, I didn't. I voted for the increment because council's honorarium has basically gone down 20% over the last 4 years. There has not been any addition to it whatsoever. And all you do, Jack, is you push it off to some poor council down the line who has to make a substantial increase, get all the flack, because council didn't have the guts to provide not even an inflation increase over an incremental period of time.
I'm sorry I missed that, but the headline is Mikey wants his raise.
It has nothing to do with me personally.
Mikey wants his raise for the office.
No, it has to do with the mayor's office and the alderman's office. The increment that they receive, I think, has got to be done steadily over a period of time instead of dumping it all on one council because they don't have the guts to do it.
Yeah, 2% a year and you'd have been all
Whatever, right.
But in this time of terrible trauma, you must
We've been going for 4 years,
You
Jack.
must be prepared to suffer, sir.
I don't mind this. I don't mind myself. As I said, if I wanted to make money, I'd be doing
By the
something
way,
else.
did you have to kick in your lavish over expenditures on your Japan trip out of your own money?
What, the $10,000 for the hosting of the people we met?
Yes.
It'll pay itself back in extra taxes over the next few years, Jack. Don't you worry. Worthwhile investment.
Yeah, but I had to
You
give
can't feed people hamburgers when you go on these junkets. You
no.
can't take peanut butter sandwiches along. Some of
No.
our people have got to grow up about the way you do business in this world.
But I had to give you a wee shot.
That's okay. I'll give it back to you in the golf course. You only get 2 strokes from me next time.
Go ahead, please.
Hi, good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
I'd like to make a personal comment about what I've seen of you, over the last 5 years. I don't think I've ever been more refreshed to see somebody as honest and and doing a fine job as you are, and in our province where there's quite the political circus going on, I hope someday to mark my X on the ballot saying Premier Mike Harcourt.
Just a minute. Are you starting a campaign for Harcourt to do two things? One, get rid of Skelly and take over the NDP.
I'm not doing anything of the sort, sir. I am simply saying I would like to see somebody refreshing.
Are you saying that you want Harcourt for Premier of all of British Columbia?
God, I hope so someday.
Then you're saying get rid of Skelly, take over the NDP, get rid of all the old deadbeats in the NDP?
Very, very good, sir, but I'm not saying that.
No, I know you're not. I'm saying it to annoy
Well, no,
Mike.
something. I'd like to respond to that, Jack. First of all, thank you very much, sir, for the compliment. And secondly, I think Bob Skelly's doing a good job.
I do too.
I think that Bob Skelly has a very good chance of becoming
In that case, you must
the
get the
premier
next
in this
question.
province.
Are you in favor of wiping out the current jobs on Lyle Island because of the NDP policy on the environment? Are you, yes or no?
I haven't even thought about it. I haven't even thought about it. Listen, my boundaries go to Boundary Road, Burrard Inlet, the University Endowment Lands, and the Fraser River.
Okay, are you in favor?
And welcome to a nuclear weapons-free city.
Are you in favor of body houses and Sven Robinson's riding? Don't have to answer that question after the break. This is Mike Harcourt, the Mayor of Vancouver. There's nobody on the horizon. Harry will never have guts enough to run against you, will he? Oh, you wouldn't let Harry run against you. Harry Rankin, I'm talking about.
Hey, this is a free society, and they're adult people, and they may choose to run, Jack. As
sure.
I said the last election, the more the better. I'm glad we had some competition.
I'd like to see Harry and you and George Pugh run.
That would be fun.
And George would win.
That would be interesting.
Go ahead, please.
You want to bet on that?
No. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack Webster and Mayor Harcourt.
Morning, sir.
First of all, I'm wondering, and I'm sure it's been brought up before, if the prostitution can't be moved to a more commercial area or district.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. In the interim, sir, we're trying to have the prostitutes, and I've talked to some of their representatives indirectly, and the police and the residents, of shifting down to the north of Fifth Avenue, and hopefully that has occurred it has started to occur over the last 4 or 5 days, so that we can have a peace pact between the residents and the prostitutes until we get the change to the criminal code.
Okay. Secondly, I'm a Shaughnessy resident, and I must say that I really do sympathize with the plight I see with the Mount Pleasant residents. I'm really surprised there hasn't been more bloodshed between the unfortunate residents and, honestly, the scum like the pimps, the hookers, and the johns that are in their homes, their areas, their backyards. I watched Channel 10 on, I believe, Saturday, and I don't normally watch public TV, but this really caught my eye. And
that was a debate that council had on Tuesday night, the discussion
I
about
guess
the
it's
problem.
correct, maybe it was delayed, but I thought I had watched it on Saturday, and my heart really went out to these.
Well, it should. Those people deserve better, I'll tell you. They don't deserve that kind of
Are
degradation.
you presently instructing the police to do a sweep?
No, the police said that the police said that they're not collie dogs. They're not collie dogs. They're not there to do that.
That's right. I'd tell you a good place.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that I think that would be a good thing if that did happen. By the way, did you see my Glaswegian tie?
Glaswegian tie.
It was given to me by the Lord Mayor. Robert Graves said to say hello to you.
The Lord Provost.
Lord Provost, the Lord Mayor. It's the Lord Provost in Edinburgh.
And Glasgow.
And they said to say hello to you.
Good.
Looking forward to you coming back.
I know a great place where you wouldn't notice the hookers.
Yeah.
The railway line in Arbutus between 25th and 33rd. No houses near them. If they were allowed to walk up and down the railway lines, that would give that part of town a taste of the problem.
I don't think anybody else needs a taste of the problem. I think that the problem should be...
Now do I. Be discreet, off the street.
Right.
Nobody houses.
Yeah.
And really control the juveniles.
But I'm saying, 86, 87, you're going to see a debate across this country about the issue of body houses.
Yeah, of course, we'll have every high-class hooker in the world here for Expo, but you don't notice them so much because they operate out of the fancy places. But you can't avoid that. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, sir.
I was just wondering, perhaps you could let the word be out on the streets that the prostitutes should move down to Granville Island, and that's federal property. And then the feds would have to look after it. There's a hotel down there. There's no residences, and it shouldn't bother anybody, and we could get the federal government involved.
It's too close to where Mikey and I live.
That could be, but
That has been suggested, sir. I'd hate to see one of the suggestions, the poor frustrated people in Mount Pleasant, is that they share the problem. Every month we have a shift to a different neighborhood. I'd prefer not to share the problem with anybody. I'd prefer to get an amendment to the criminal code, go after the customers, deal sensibly with the poor kids and a lot of the women out in the street.
Go ahead, please.
yes. Good morning, Jack, and Your Honor.
Morning, sir.
What about the possibility of just anchoring it out on a ship? Periodically, ships come up at almost $1 value, and they hold a lot of passengers. And
Yeah.
control it. You can control the medical aspect. You can control the their money and their saving and future education. Give them protection and cut out the pimps. And this will then city fathers will be able to say, well, at least it isn't on the city. It's anchored out, or it's at the end of a road.
I'll tell you what, as I said to Jack, I think that will be the debate after we have the amendment to the criminal code and we start to deal more sensibly with the social economic problems of some of the kids and women. That issue of body houses, red light districts, will then be what the Fraser Commission suggested we address, and which the Honorable John Crosby has suggested will be discussed and brought forward for Parliament to look at, and then we'll have a discussion of it in our communities, whether it's ships, whether it's red light districts, body houses, or keep the present purgatory and hypocrisy we've got.
Oh, well. Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Despite all the sufferings up in Mount Pleasant and what we hear about the secret meetings and so, I would just like to voice my support against Mayor Harcourt and say he's done a wonderful job. And I can remember way back when we went to the whole battle between you and Vandersam, there was a lot of people that was kind of a little bit scared that he might be able to pull off a victory. And it's just good to have you in the driver's seat still.
Okay, Vandersam did run, didn't he? He did run, didn't he?
Yes, we were on your program. As a matter of fact, we had a good feisty debate here.
He's vanished from public life altogether now.
Oh, I don't think so. I think he'll pop up again somewhere else.
He might be the new Liberal leader when Art Lee bombs. Go ahead, please.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Morning.
First of all, I'd like to second that guy that called a little while ago and talked about being taken into the police station for non-payment of his fines. First of all, I think he was kind of disrespectful of the law, but I don't think the people should be taken down to the jail for non-payment of a traffic fine. I think that all of our police resources have to be used to protect victims from being victimized by assailants.
Yeah.
I also wanted to make a point about the prostitution.
No, let's take your other point. Wait, tell him where he's wrong on that.
No, well, I think if the police are being overzealous for one ticket, for a small ticket, fine, I agree with that. That's the reason why we have
the 10-ticket minimum.
Well, I think that's a bit too much, but I think that there has to be some common sense, sir, and I agree with you. I think for a jaywalking ticket or a small infraction like not riding a bike properly, that's possibly going overboard. But there are people, believe me, who are, some of them on our council, who will remain nameless, who collect just a lot of tickets. A lot of tickets. And there are some who have to have chauffeurs now because of that fact in the past. But they will remain nameless, who those people are.
Aldermen who collect tickets and don't pay them.
And broadcasters who don't drive themselves around now.
And mayors who don't drive themselves around either.
Oh, still do. Drove myself out this morning.
I thought you had a driver.
Just for VIPs when they come
into
town.
You should have a driver. You haven't got time to waste going for parking places.
Yeah, no, for those occasions I have a driver. But to drive out here to come and enjoy this program with you is no problem.
I'm going to get Schneider to check with Bowers right away.
Well, he's one of the worst.
I wonder how many tickets Fritz has got.
I'm not sure if he's got tickets, but I would drive with you before I drive with him.
But I want to know if there is a law, a rule at City Hall that no warrants are issued to anyone under these traffic tickets or whatnot until 10 have been collected.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
Will you check it out?
Yep.
Good.
I've
Much
got your
obliged.
form here.
Where am I? Which line? 8. Kill. Last call. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Harcourt, you were kind enough to give us your salary and the salary of all the aldermen on the council, but you neglected to mention how much
extra you are paid for attending special meetings like the Greater Vancouver Regional District Board, the P&E Board, the free lunches you get, the freebies you get all over the world. How about a remark on that? And then I can, you're wondering what to do with the garbage from Greater Vancouver. May I suggest that you put it behind the lines in the watershed? It can't be any worse than the sewage from the loggers up there.
I don't think that was a very helpful call. we receive for going out to a GVRD meeting, I think $75, which when I was running a law practice didn't even pay for the typewriter ribbons in the office. But you know,
to people who are
I'm not on the P&E board, but I'm not quite sure what the gentleman.
To people who are unemployed and having a tough time, it looks like you make a lot of money. For the job and the responsibility, it's not.
It's a tough one. It's a no-win situation. That's why I also suggested a procedure where we had a management consultant every couple of years.
You've got to be a masochist to be mayor of Vancouver.
No, it's a great job, Jack.
My thanks to Mike Harcourt. Next, a couple of keyhole peepers, the Money Rustlers, after the break. I regard myself as a bit of a know-it-all, and I read all the Newman books and whatnot, and they sometimes bore me. But I picked up this book, The Money Rustlers, and I get deluged with books, you know, so that I might give the authors a free plug. This book is quite fascinating. Self-made millionaires of the New West. And a friend of mine, Paul Grescoe, a journalist of some note, and his colleague David Cruz, who used to be a ditch digger. What else?
A lighthouse keeper. Lighthouse keeper. I was the assistant manager of the Vancouver Youth Hostel for a while.
In the old days, in the 60s?
In the old days, yeah.
When it was the Hilton Hotel?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, you wouldn't always call him Tie Man, were you?
Oh, no. Heck no.
And all kinds of things. And this book is specifically about self-made millionaires. Who is the most loud, obnoxious self-made millionaire in the West, gentlemen?
We won't tell you because he's not in the book.
Nelson. No, you haven't got a name for me. Who is the most let's go to Alberta first of all. What can you tell me about the Grescoes, who to me are shadowy, mysterious people who seem to be buying up all of Western Canada? Who are the Grescoes?
Well, there's four of them. Well, there's a lot more than four. There's four brothers, father, numerous.
How much money do they have?
Well, their assets are about $2 billion.
Where did they get it?
Well, this is where it's a little hard to be sure. They had a thriving business in around. They're a huge rug making, selling, distributing business, and they brought it to Canada.
Now, how did you manage to get to talk to them? Because apart from carefully scheduled publicity interviews in the Edmonton Mall, my understanding is that they talked to nobody.
Well, we tricked them, really. It was, I mean, in retrospect, it seems very simple, but we read everything we could about them. We both use computers, so we used computer searches and got all the goods on them. And there was a definite pattern that these guys were, one, they over-exaggerated everything, the eighth wonder of the world, that sort of thing. The other was that they have this phobia about personal security. So we plotted a little campaign. The first thing we did was we sent a letter to them saying, look, you know, hello, this is us, we're doing this book, and not asking for permission, just informing them. We'll be contacting associates, and just left it at that. And informing them that I would be in town, for instance, in 3 weeks' time, and I'll be contacting for interviews. So we phoned them up when we were in town and said, hello, this is David Cruz and Paul Grescoe. We're going to be doing this book on the Grescoe family, and emphasizing again and again that this project is happening no matter what, and that you know, it's in progress. And had a long talk with Nader Grescoe on the phone, and it was, of course, full of reasons why it would never happen, it couldn't happen. I said, fine, we're just going right ahead.
So by ignoring them, by being arrogant with them and autocratic, they finally collapsed in matron.
Well, there was one letter that did it. I sent him a letter about a month after that saying, thank you for your cooperation. The research is all concluded. We have done over 150 interviews, the exaggeration, and we have 1,000 newspaper reports. Well, that guy was on the phone the next morning demanding to know when we'd be in town for an interview.
Great stuff. That's a good technique. Now, I'm going to give you some names which are not known on the West Coast, and you tell me who they are and why they're self-made millionaires. Nick Taylor. Nobody knows who he is here. Who is he?
Nick Taylor is the Liberal leader of Alberta, probably the most thankless job aside from the mayor of Vancouver, but he's also a very successful oil millionaire.
How much?
How much is he worth, David?
At least $10 million.
Yeah.
$10 million,
Yes.
leader of the Liberal Party.
That's right. Yeah. And a fascinating guy who grew up playing piano in a brothel, if I remember.
That's right. Dislikes Trudeau, hasn't had a favor from the federal Liberals ever when they were in power, and yet continues trudging
Played the
along.
piano in the House of Ill Repute.
Yes. That's when they were illegal.
Jack Singer.
Jack Singer is fascinating. Jack Singer, who now has a concert hall named for him in Calgary, because his sons bought it for $1.5 million. Jack Singer, who was one of the dreamers who wanted to buy Ocean Falls at one point. He wanted to put a huge 2-mile-long development along False Creek. None of this ever happened. But the fellow has made a fortune in real estate deals. The interesting thing about Jack Singer, though, is that he bought Francis Ford Coppola's studio. He just waited in the bushes. He had invested some money, never as much money as people said. And when Francis Ford Coppola was in trouble, there came Jack and plucked the studio away from him.
And he's got his name up in the studio, the Jack Singer Production Center in Hollywood.
That's right. There and in Calgary.
How much is he worth?
That one is really tough because it's a very, very private company. His business manager told me, or his president said that if Jack feels comfortable to say he's got $500 million, then that's okay.
Did he have a brother that owned the Palomar nightclub in Vancouver?
Singer.
That's the same
Jaime
guy.
Singer came across on a freight car to Vancouver, started the Palomar. He's now down in California doing all sorts of wonderful things.
Is that the same Singer who bailed out the Bank of BC on the bad loans?
That's right, yes. Same Jack Singer.
That's a beautiful deal, though. He bought those loans for half what they cost. This is land. I mean, loan is land.
I'll bet that.
Yeah, and then the bank loaned him the money to buy the land back. I mean, that's a...
140 million, I think the loans were.
Originally.
And then the Bank of BC discounted them to him for
60, I think.
60 or 70, we'll say.
Yeah.
Then the Bank of BC loaned them the money to
buy them.
Yeah.
Now, next one. For what in the city of Vancouver and perhaps throughout the world are Brenda Humber and Gary
Hoagie. As in Hoagie
What are they
Carmichael.
famous for?
The mum and pop of sex,
Yeah.
they call them.
Well,
What?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You're the expert on
You're
that.
the sex expert.
Yeah.
The mom
Yes,
and pop
in this
of
case.
sex.
He tried every item in their stores twice.
In their catalog.
Right.
In their catalog.
They had to kick him
They
out
are,
of the
they
store.
are really interesting because you think immediately sleaze. And you go in the love shop, it's actually a cross between a harem, and an old-fashioned kind
Did you
of
go
sex
into
shop.
the love shop?
I bought product there, Jack. I lead a very exciting life.
They could get an injunction against him, Jack.
Yeah,
Out of there.
but they are interesting because they are very, very middle class. They have a couple of kids.
They sell devices for the stimulation of sexual activities.
Yeah, but
I can't put any blunter than that, or I'd be rude, wouldn't I?
They have a chain of stores across Canada. But you know what?
And they sell chains too?
yeah, no chains, no whips.
When did Brenda and Gary go into the sex caper?
Back in the early 70s, they were the first one in Canada who
Was
ever
that
did
the
that.
one on Davie Street?
No, this is in Calgary that they started. They only moved here a few years ago. No, that one, I think there was a sex shop, but it wasn't anything.
How
of the
much
same
are
kind.
Brenda and Gary Hoog worth today?
They're not worth as much money as probably any others in the book. I'd say maybe a couple of million tops.
How much does it cost to buy a franchise from them?
That's in the book, and I didn't memorize the book, so I can't remember that.
It says
figure.
here that less than 10 years ago they were unemployed and candidates for help.
Oh, they were. Yeah, he had been fired from his job at a community college where he was very politically active, and his wife was a social worker. That's the interesting thing about it. She was a social worker. He was an educator. So by going into this business, they added a little level of taste that was never there before.
But they sell all these weirdo things.
Well, yeah, but I know lots of middle-class people like myself who go in there and buy them.
Speak for your own friend, Paul Grescoe. We're going to give you another little test and some more people too after the break.
Okay.
Let's go. Couldn't do without them now. You talked about that. You could have been independently wealthy millionaires today. Who is Ed Alfke? A-L-F-K-E.
He's the rent-a-wreck man.
How much money has he made?
What do you think?
Well, Alfke's got about 140 franchises around the world, not just in Canada. He really invented the whole rent-a-wreck concept in the world, although there's a group in the States called Rent-a-Wreck that came on board, we figure, about 6 months afterwards. And he didn't protect the name, which is a real problem. But he's now renting new cars, too.
Is he, in fact, cheaper than going to...
Oh, very much so. Very much so. And actually, the cars aren't that bad. I rented one once and found it...
Where is Alfke from?
He's from up north. He had a father who was a bank manager, and he bounced around northern BC. And, but now based in Vancouver.
You've got more names I've never heard of here. Peter Nygaard.
Oh,
Is he a multi-millionaire?
Oh, yeah. Peter, yeah.
Where's he from?
He's from Winnipeg.
Well, now living in Los Angeles, but that only happened this past few months. When Peter started as in the schmata business, you know, in Winnipeg.
The what
the
business?
Schmata, the rag trade business.
The rag trade.
Yeah, and he now has Canada's largest sportswear company. But the thing about Peter is that he is really flamboyant. He's a great Gatsby kind of character who has, you know, boats and limited reproduction cars all over the world, and he leads a very larger-than-life existence.
Just a young guy.
Yeah.
Well, the favorite character I have in your book, and I think he was a little bit annoyed about it too.
I'll tell you
about
about
that. He's a guy
that.
I've known very well for a number of years, and I regard him as a legitimate, loud genius. I'm being at my most gracious. And that's Bruce Allen.
Bruce.
How much is Bruce worth?
Bruce has $2 million, he says, in spare cash right now. In other words, that he's got in savings. His fortunes go up and down.
You better
with his
see who
acts.
Bruce Allen is, because he used to be a greaseball. He went to the Vancouver College with my daughter Jenny.
Oh, that's right. He
That's
used to
right.
play hockey at the Vancouver College with masks on their heads, so
I'm
they
talking
could.
about the 25th, you know, the school. Anyway.
It doesn't matter. The point being that, yeah, he came up from literally nowhere. He now is the manager of Bryan Adams, who's the hottest young rock star in the world, I guess.
Makes $10 million a week.
That's right, and Loverboy. And before that, he rode to fame on the Bachman-Turner Overdrive. And, you know, he was a verbal and, in fact, physical brawler. I mean, he was called the loudmouth of rock.
Some of the greatest rows and screaming matches of my entire life, and I'm not an amateur at it, were between Allen, Jack Wasserman, and quiet little me.
I'd like to have been there.
Why they didn't throw us out of Gastown, I shall never know.
But Bruce is interesting because he's got a lot of respectability now. I mean, he was named Manager of the Year for all of North America last year. He's a man who, when they wanted to do this Tears Are Not Enough, they had to phone Bruce Allen in Canada to cajole all of the 50 or whatsoever entertainers to get onto that shooting. He did not like the book. He got it, somehow he got it uncorrected galleys before the book appeared, and phoned us up and said, can we come down and see him, because he was unhappy about it.
Imperiously called up.
Imperiously, yeah, he's imperious.
Imperiously called
Yes, and I...
Get down to see me right away!
Well, no, what bothered me is he sent an assistant to phone, and I said, look, I'm a very busy man, I run a business, if Bruce wants to come and see me, let him come. And I said, anyway, it's academic because the book is virtually in print. I never heard from him again. I'd be very curious, because I'd say 95% of what's in the book about Bruce Allen came from Bruce Allen's mouth. You know, tape-recorded interviews.
It's a good piece.
Thank
Is
you.
Umberto Mengi big enough to be in your book?
Well, he's worth about $10 million now.
10 million?
Yeah.
Wish I'd taken that free drink he offered me.
I think people don't. Umberto is such an entertainer, a calculating entertainer, that people forget what he's achieved. I mean, Christ, he's got 10 restaurants that he started And they're all...
Things are tough in the restaurant business, so I'll tell you.
Well, he's still
Well,
doing
anyway,
pretty
it's a good gossipy book. If I enjoyed it, it's readable, you know. I skipped a couple.
Thank you.
But I liked... I'll use this as a bit of background if any of these self-made millionaires... by the way, what about... any losers in the book?
Oh, yes. Tell them about the losers, baby.
Well, one of the things that we encountered researching this book was that there was a real sense of you can't do it. You know, people love to hear these stories. We tell a taxi driver, you know, after we'd done an interview about some of these people, and they'd love to do the stories, but they always said, well, you can't do that anymore. And we started thinking why, and I think it's because guys like Nelson Scalabania and Murray Pesum and Peter Pocklington, J. Bob Carter, these are the guys that we saw as our Western entrepreneurs that the Eastern media was always reporting on.
Appeared like rockets and went down like rockets.
That's right.
Not necessarily lost money, but you know, their public reputation is gone.
How much is it? I hate to ask.
$19.95.
You mean to say if I write a book, I can sell it for $20?
And if you write a book, you could sell it for $25?
Probably a lot more. That's a cheap price for a hardcover now.
Yeah.
Okay, Money Rustlers, Messrs. Cruz and... What's your name again?
Grescoe.
I've forgiven you for that cheap shot you took out of the TV guide.
Thank you.
Next, we've got to finish this Monday morning with, must have one a day at least, a free-for-all. So let's have at it. Maybe I've managed to annoy you, provoke you, raise your interest, or put you to sleep. Please don't snore. Just call after the break. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm excellent, all things considered, this being Monday morning and all.
And if you get lucky, you might even get better. I wanted to know if Peter Thomas is included in that book, The Money Rustlers.
Peter Thomas. Peter Thomas. Peter Thomas. No, he's not in the book.
Oh, that's good, because I did some work for him, and he's the biggest farce I ever saw, and I wanted to...
Oh, just a minute, I don't know even this guy is. You're insulting. I've never heard of him. Quick, somebody tell me who Peter Thomas is.
Peter Thomas was the chairman of...
Chairman of the what? Oh, he was in Newman's book, but you shouldn't... He was in Newman's book. You mustn't be nasty about Peter like that, but I don't believe he is quite in the position of power and influence he was before. I wonder what people would say about me if somebody else was doing an open line program on me, because I can never get the truth about me. I don't know the truth about me anyway. Good morning.
Oh, good morning. I was just wondering if you were in that book, Mr. Webster, how much money you make.
I make good money, but I pay all my taxes. I'm not a gambler. I'm not a fiddler. I'm as clean as a whistle. I'm dull as dishwasher, and I've got enough to see me buy to my wee box.
Oh, that's good.
Okie dokie. My wee box, if you know what my wee box is. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, say something.
Jack.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to ask you, or ask the two gentlemen there, what they thought of Ed Beckley and these get-rich-quick on real estate schemes.
Oh, I got a letter from him this morning. Is that the guy? Who's the guy I got a letter from about the get-rich-quick real estate? You can buy 1,000 properties anywhere with no money down, and if you buy many small properties and con people into mortgages, in due course, if you live to be 190 and the market comes back, you'll make $1 million.
Right.
No, I have no faith whatsoever. I see things on television where they've got these day-long real estate seminars, and to tell you the truth, they make me sick because they always come in with a pitch for $250 up front before they tell you the obvious. No, I'm not in favor of these real estate courses in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack.
Morning.
I was calling about another commercial on your television program. Does your ring hurt my finger with Charlie Pride? I haven't seen the commercial today, and I'm so glad. Do you ever watch what goes on between your or in your breaks?
No. No.
Well, you've missed one of the most annoying
Charlie
commercials
Pride, who is
ever.
Charlie Pride? Oh, the cowboy.
Charlie Pride. Record, you know, he's selling records.
Country and Western. And what's so horrible about it?
Oh, it's awful. It is just awful. I mean, every morning listening to you Does my ring hurt your finger? And it is, I mean, I want to put my foot through the television. Other than the fact that you're coming back after the break, I don't do it. But
I must watch it. I'll get somebody to play it back for me.
oh no.
Yeah.
Not on the air.
Okay, not on the air. Does your ring hurt my finger? Is that it? Go ahead, please.
Yes, hi, Jack. I just want to congratulate the staff at the Yellow Point Lodge. I was in the fire, and especially Richard Hill. If it wasn't for him, we would be dead.
Oh, you're talking about the fire at Yellow Point over at Nanaimo.
Yes, that's it.
And it was burned down over the weekend, $300,000 damage.
Yes.
And did he help you to get out?
Yes, he did. And it was just because of him. Nobody knew where the fire escape was. So we had to crawl on our hands and knees and go to a room, and we didn't see anything, and there was a lot of smoke, and we're still recuperating from it. You know, it was a miracle that we are all alive now.
Oh, all's well that ends well. I see he's going to rebuild it, fortunately, and that it seems to be covered by insurance.
Sure, yes.
Oh, that's very good.
Okay, congratulations again to Richard.
Thank you. To Richard Price. Richard, whatever his name is. Can I light on calls in this free-for-all this morning? Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Webster, is there a possibility that your program can be repeated in the evenings?
No, there is not. It was on Channel 6 for a number of years, as you know. This is now my 8th year, and I think they've made their decision that perhaps they can do better with reruns with Matt Houston. And I have no control over that, and I've really got no complaint about it. It just means I've got to do better during the day.
Well, I think perhaps if all your listeners out there got together and wrote some letters to CTV, that might help to get your program back on.
Well, I've no objection.
You can encourage people to do.
Well, I don't like to do that. I mean, it's a business decision made by the people who employ me, and I don't think it's right for me to whip up a storm on one of their business decisions. And it's a decision over which I have no control, and so therefore you're perfectly free to express it, but I'm not starting any campaign on it. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. What else can you say? Go ahead, please.
Yes, morning, Jack.
Morning.
I'd like to thank you and your television crew for helping the painters and allied trades there, getting some of their funds.
That's a story we're working on right now, as a matter of fact, and we haven't come to the end of the story yet. Have you been paid some of the money owing to you on this job now?
We've been paid 30% of what we were owed through that company.
And are you going to get the balance of it?
At some point in time, when, I'm not sure.
Well, without giving you details, but so people can understand, this is a construction project, which is a unionized construction project in town, where because there were some complaints about the quality of work, a check was held back, and the crews didn't get their full pay, but perhaps our inquiries about it have made people realize that the workmen must be paid.
Oh, this is first, yes.
So we'll keep an eye on it, and thanks very much, old boy. It was good. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I have a proposal to make money for Vancouver and curb our prostitution problem. Why don't we, for the expo site, after 86, change that into a red light district? We could change the light bulbs in that giant disco ball that attracts all the people coming into the city, plenty of parking, and we could make some money for Vancouver and the feds.
Well, we'll have to wait until this child in Victoria is over to see what Mr. Bennett's policy is and that kind of thing. Thank you. Eight years and they can't fasten a mic on my tie properly. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to voice my agreement with that lady that called in about the Charlie Pride album. I've watched it. I've been watching your show for the past, since it came back.
No, I don't want to see Charlie Pride. No, no.
In that album, I used to have a full head of hair till I started hearing that on the TV. And now you've got more than I have. I've been tearing it out every morning.
You mean Charlie? No, I'm not going to play the Charlie Pride commercial. They've got it set up here ready to go. I'm not going to play it.
I don't want to hear it.
Good, neither do I. And you're as bald as a coot, I understand. You're as bald as a coot. Is that correct?
Well, just about.
Thank you very much. I can't remember the next line. You're as bald as a coot. Oh, isn't that funny? 55 Barbara Green Road. What a funny name. Carly Hunter, bald as a coot. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Webster.
Yes, sir.
Just on the symphony,
I find it remarkable that Montreal, for instance, can raise over $1 million with an expenditure of only $18,000, where it costs the Vancouver Symphony $500,000 to raise just over $1 million. I think I'm glad to see there is a change in the directors there, because I think they were turning the symphony into an exercise in cultural snobbery. Any outfit that spends more of its money on administration than on the prime reason for it is the symphony. I only go to it once a year because of the price to get in. You know, I mean, it's just a matter of my finances. But you know, it's just a shame to see a marvelous institution like that for the city of Vancouver.
Well, it's obviously been very badly managed, and when they went in with a 400,000 deficit proposed and finished with an 800,000 deficit proposed, somebody was very sloppy. And I have no sympathy for the symphony people at the moment. I know we've got to have one, and I'm surprised by Bennett kicking in $250,000, even if there are stringent tickets conditions attached to it. But your point about the cost of raising money by the Vancouver Symphony is the one which is not being hammered and should be hammered.
I should think so, because you know, the orchestra itself is marvelous. The few chances I've had to see it.
I gotta go. You've done your job well. Is that it? No more segments? Over already? Time passes quickly when you're having fun. I'll be back after break. Only thing I've gotten aboard so far for tomorrow is Art Lee, leader of the Liberal Party. Sophia Loren is coming soon, but that's not for tomorrow, I don't think. Working on a couple of other things. Tell you about them later, you know. Programs don't fall out of the sky. You've got to work for them. Somebody has to. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. precisely. There is a Liberal Party, and Art Lee is the leader. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. precisely. Seriously speaking, can there ever be an end to polarization in BC politics? Let's check Art Lee of the Liberals on this tomorrow at 9